Most people think the worst thing a coworker can do is steal your lunch or take credit for your work. I believed that too, until I realized one of mine was watching me. Not just during office hours, but long after everyone else had gone home. I won't say the company name, but this happened a few years ago when I was working late shifts at a mid-sized office building just outside the city. Nothing memorable about it: rows of identical cubicles, gray carpet worn thin from years of pacing, fluorescent lights that buzzed softly overhead, the kind of place that feels oddly lifeless even when it's full of people. There were around 20 employees on my floor, but only a handful worked late. Most people left by 6, by 9, the office felt abandoned. One of the few who stayed late was a guy named Eric. Eric blended in perfectly. He wasn't awkward. He wasn't loud. He wasn't obviously strange. He dressed neatly, always wore the same calm expression, and volunteered for overtime whenever it was offered. He did his job well and never complained. You asked anyone about him, they'd say the same thing: nice guy, keeps his head down, at least. That's what we thought. My shift usually ended around 10:30 p.m. Eric's ended at 11. Most nights, we were the last people on the floor. At first, I didn't mind it. The quiet helped me focus. No ringing phones, no chatter, just the soft hum of computers and air vents. Then I started noticing things. Eric always knew when I was about to leave my desk, even if he was across the floor, wearing headphones and staring at his screen. He'd glance up the second I stood. Sometimes he'd smile and say, "Heading out," before I even reached for my bag. I told myself it was nothing. Coincidence. In an open office, movement is easy to spot. But it kept happening. If I left early, he noticed. If I stayed late, he stayed later. If I went to the break room, he followed a few minutes after. If I took the stairs instead of the elevator, I'd hear footsteps behind me. One night, trying to brush it off, I joked, "What are you, psychic or something?" He laughed quietly. "I just pay attention," he said. The way he said it made my skin crawl. A few weeks later, things escalated. I woke up in the middle of the night to a notification on my phone. An email. It was from Eric. The timestamp read to 14 a.m. There was no subject line. The message contained only one sentence: "Did you get home safe?" I stared at my phone, my heart slowly sinking. I had never given Eric my personal email. I hadn't told him where I lived. And I definitely hadn't told him when I got home. The next morning, I asked him about it, trying to sound calm. "Oh, that," he said, barely glancing up from his monitor. "I found your email in the company directory." "That was my personal email," I said. He smiled slightly. "Still counts." That was the first time I felt genuinely unsafe. After that, he started knowing things he shouldn't have. He commented on the coffee shop I stopped at before work. He mentioned the grocery store I went to on Sundays. He asked if I'd switched detergents because my clothes smelled different. Once, he casually asked if my sister had made it home safely after visiting. I had never told him my sister was in town when I confronted him. He shrugged. "You talk more than you think," he said, but I didn't. I stopped trusting the space around me. I changed my routine, parked in different spots, took different routes home. I stopped posting online entirely. I even checked my car for tracking devices, feeling ridiculous but terrified. Then came the night everything fell apart. I left work early because I felt sick. As I entered the parking garage, a strange feeling settled in my chest. Eric's car was already there. That made no sense. His shift hadn't ended yet. I got into my car and locked the doors immediately. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You forgot your badge." My stomach dropped. I checked my bag. It was gone. Another message appeared. "I can bring it to you." I looked up. Eric was standing at the far end of the garage, half hidden behind a concrete pillar. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't waving. He was just staring at my car. I started the engine and drove away without responding. I didn't stop until I was home, my hands shaking the entire drive. The next morning, I reported everything to HR. They pulled security footage. What they found was worse than anything I imagined. Eric had been staying late almost every night long after clocking out. He wasn't working. He was watching the security cameras, tracking who left and when, which cars they drove, which routes they took. They also found footage of him entering the garage on nights he wasn't scheduled, sometimes hours after I had already gone home. The badge. He'd taken it from my desk weeks earlier. HR contacted the police. Eric never returned to work. I quit soon after. Months passed. I tried to move on. Then I received one final email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line. Just one sentence. You should really lock your doors. I moved apartments the following week. So, if a coworker seems a little too observant, a little too interested in your routine, trust that feeling, because sometimes the real horror isn't working late, it's realizing someone else never left. Most people think hospitals are safest places in the world. Cameras everywhere, security desks, locked wards. I used to believe that too, until I realized one of my coworkers was using the hospital to hide what he was doing, and I was the only one who noticed. This happened when I worked night shifts as a patient transport aide at a regional hospital. Not a huge city hospital, just big enough to feel endless at night. Long hallways, dimmed lights, machines beeping softly behind closed doors. During the day, the place was chaos. At night, it was a different kind of alive. There were maybe 30 staff members across the entire building between midnight and 6 a.m. Nurses, a few doctors, security, and people like me, transporters. We moved patients, bodies, equipment, whatever was needed. That's how I met Caleb. Caleb worked the same shift as me, but he wasn't a transporter. He was listed as overnight patient support. No one really explained what that meant. He floated between departments, helped nurses, moved supplies. He was always there, not in an obvious way. He didn't hover. He didn't linger. Just appeared. If I got a call to move a patient from ICU to imaging, Caleb would already be in the hallway when I arrived. If I stopped at the nurse's station to grab gloves, he'd be restocking something nearby. He was polite, soft-spoken, almost comforting. Too comforting. The first strange thing I noticed was how he knew names, not just staff, patients. He'd pass by and say things like, "Mr. Henson doesn't like being moved too fast," or "She's going to wake up confused, talk to her first." He was always right. I assumed he'd read charts. Until one night he said, "You should take the long hallway tonight." Why, I asked. There was an incident earlier. Replied calmly, there hadn't been. I checked. The second thing I noticed was that Caleb never wore an ID badge. Everyone in the hospital did, even doctors, even janitors. When I asked him about it, he smiled. "I lose them," he said. "A lot." Management didn't seem to care. The real problem started with room 417. It was supposed to be empty. I knew because I'd transported the last patient out earlier that night. Elderly man. Passed quietly. Body sent for the morgue. Round 2:30 a.m., I got a call to bring a wheelchair to the 4th floor. When I stepped off the elevator, Caleb was already there, standing outside room 417. Lights off. Curtain drawn. "You shouldn't go in there," he said. I laughed nervously. "There's no one in there." He didn't laugh back. "There is now." I asked what he meant. He said, "Someone who shouldn't be alone." Before I could respond, a nurse rushed past us, pushing a gurney toward another room. I turned away for maybe 2 seconds. When I looked back, Caleb was gone. So was the wheelchair call. The next morning, I checked the logs. Room 417 was still listed as empty. 2 nights later, I heard crying. Soft, weak, coming from the same room. I stood outside the door, heart pounding. The lights inside were on now. Shadows moved behind the curtain. I called security. They arrived and opened the door. The room was spotless. No patient. No equipment. No signs anyone had been there. But the bed was warm. Security told me I was tired. That night shifts mess with your head. I tried to believe them. Then a nurse went missing. Her name was Elena. She worked nights like us. Quiet. Kept to herself. The kind of person who never called in sick. She didn't show up for 2 shifts. Management said she quit. But her locker was still full. Her car was still in the parking garage. And her last logged location. 4th floor. Near room 417. I started paying attention to Caleb. I noticed he never used elevators, only stairs. I noticed he signed into departments he wasn't assigned to. And I noticed something else. Patients who interacted with him requested transfers, or suddenly worsened, or stopped responding altogether. One night, I followed him. He went into the stairwell and down past the basement into a level I didn't know existed. The door wasn't labeled. I shouldn't have gone after him, but I did. The hallway below smelled wrong. Not like antiseptic, like rust and stagnant water. There were rooms down there, old ones, beds, curtains, monitoring equipment that wasn't plugged in, and names written on the walls. Staff names, patient names, some crossed out, some circled. I heard footsteps behind me. Caleb's voice, calm as ever. You're not supposed to be here. I ran. I reported everything the next morning. HR reviewed records. Security checked footage. There was no employee named Caleb. No badge history. No payroll record. No camera footage of him entering or leaving the hospital. But they did find something. Room 417 had been sealed years ago, after an overnight staff member was found dead inside. Cause of death unknown. I quit that week. A month later, I received a voicemail. No caller ID, just breathing. Then a familiar, gentle voice said, "You are always very good with patients. I never work nights anymore. And I never go to hospitals alone because some coworkers don't need breaks. They don't need badges, and they don't go home. They just wait for the next shift." Most people think hotels are safe. They have cameras, staff, locked doors, policies. I thought that too, until the night I realized my coworker wasn't who he said he was. He was watching me when the hotel was supposed to be empty, when the hallways were dark, when I was completely alone. This happened at a downtown boutique hotel, small, almost empty most nights, the kind of place that smells faintly of cleaning chemicals and expensive air freshener. Long, narrow hallways, flickering lights, doors that all looked the same. I worked the night shift as a receptionist. Usually, I'd sit at the front desk with nothing to do but answer a phone or check reservations. Most nights were quiet. Too quiet. That's when I noticed him. His name was Victor. On paper, he was maintenance, a fixer of leaks, a checker of alarms. Mid-40s. Quiet. Polite. Always carrying a toolbox that seemed too heavy for someone so thin. At first, I thought he was just efficient. but he was always where I wasn't expecting him. I'd check the third floor vending machine. He'd appear, leaning against the wall, pretending to inspect the smoke alarm. I'd go to the laundry room. He'd already be there, pushing a cart I hadn't seen him move in before. Then he started noticing things no one should. Your shoes are wet. You walked down the service stairwell again. I hadn't. You shouldn't wear that jacket in the laundry room. It smells like bleach now. I had only been in there for 30 seconds. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was just observant. But then the notes started appearing. Tiny scraps of hotel stationery slipped under my office door. Don't forget the 5th floor exit tonight. The back elevator is stuck. Use the stairs. You always go to the lounge at 2:17 a.m. Why? I had never told anyone my routine. And then, the whispers. I was on the 8th floor, restocking mini fridges. When I heard it, a soft voice behind me. You shouldn't be here alone. I spun around. No one. Just the hall stretching into shadows. I convinced myself it was imagination. The night shifts do that to you, right? But the next night, the doors started unlocking themselves. I'd be in the lobby, counting cash, and hear the maintenance door click open. Victor would appear in the shadows, carrying nothing, not tools, not equipment, just a blank calm stare. I tried to confront him once. Why are you always following me? I asked, voice shaking. He tilted his head, smiled faintly. I'm just making sure things are safe. I laughed nervously, but the laugh caught in my throat. Something about him didn't feel human. Then came the worst night. I was doing my usual rounds, checking rooms that had been vacated earlier. Room 712 was supposed to be empty. I'd personally cleaned it at 11 p.m. The door was slightly ajar. I froze. The hotel doors are never left unlocked. Not at night. I pushed it open. The room was empty, but the bed had been slept in. Not made-up bed covers, not fluff, but real. Crumpled sheets, faint indentations. I turned to leave. A shadow shifted in the corner. Victor. Tool bag in hand. Watching. Smiling. You shouldn't be in here, he whispered. I ran, my heart pounding. I reached the stairwell and locked the service door behind me. That's when I realized something I hadn't noticed before. All the emergency exits. The doors I thought were locked. Even the staff-only doors. He didn't need to use a key. They opened when he approached, not just in room 712, everywhere. I called security from my phone. When they arrived, Victor was gone. No footage, no trace. Just the room I had found him in, exactly the same, except now the bed was perfectly made. I quit that night. 2 weeks later, I got a message on my personal phone. Unknown number. We miss seeing you at night. I moved out of the city. Changed my number. Never stayed at a hotel alone again. Because some coworkers don't just work late. Some coworkers don't clock out. Some coworkers never leave. If you're brave enough to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe for more.